right, Barry, you ready to do this? Ready for me to tell the world how bad you get beat at this game? Oh, I know this one's a co-op, but I still win.
Join the team.
Hey, this is the McGuire Review, and today we're going to be taking a look at a new one from Awaken Realms. You've heard of Siege Storm, but this is Siege Storm Siege Mode. Let's get locked in and ready to go. All right, team, let's take a look at Siege Mode from Awaken Realms. Now, this is somewhat of a new mechanic and a new add-on to our base game of Siege Storm. So before we get kicked off here, one thing that I do want to call out is we are going to do a giveaway on this video. We're going to be seeing Siege Mode come to Kickstarter here very soon. In July, so it's going to be coming up really soon. I don't have the exact dates on that, but when it is live, I will send out a tweet and I will have the link in the description below so you guys can go directly check that out. But we are going to do a giveaway on this video. It's not going to be for the Siege Mode prototype. It will be for a copy of Siege Storm. If you do not already have this, it's an excellent TCG player versus player card game. We'll talk about what this brings to us here in a second. But I do have an extra copy of this, and I will be providing this as a giveaway. And I'm going to give this to one team member, so subscribe and comment below. You can do any comment you want. And Bear will press the button of fate at the end of the Kickstarter for Siege Mode here. And those dates will be in the description below as well once the Kickstarter is up and running. And on the last day of that Kickstarter, we will go ahead, hit the button of fate, and draw one random team member. And you will get a copy of Siege Storm, the TCG card game, which is fantastic as well. Now, we have already done a video on Siege Storm, so if you want to check that out, you can go to the actual page and check out the video on Siege Storm to see how to play that. And if that in itself interests you, because Siege Mode offers a completely different experience. What this allows this base TCG game to do is become a co-op game, really, where you are working with another player. It can be solo as well. There are two of these little cardboard, for the prototype here, tracks that are included, and you would set those out. The game would function very similar to how you would actually play Siege Storm, so we're not going to go over a full playthrough of how to actually play Siege Storm. So if you want to check that out, go watch that other video. We will be talking through the new mechanics of how Siege Mode, or the solo mode, actually works and integrates into the game. But as far as the players, those rules are going to be the same. The way that you will respond to the Invader, and that's what this is called here, that you're going through this combat with, you'll respond with the same rule set that you would use with your standard Siege Storm card game. It's all about the changes of how the Invader actually, works with the players. What the hell? Okay, so to get us kicked off here, we can play this game solo, where you would just use one of these tracks for one player, or you can play this as a co-op game with a friend, and they would use the other faction. Now, you do have to use one of each type of faction, as the rule set has it as of today. So one would be one faction, and the other player would be the other faction. And again, both of those factions that have been released so far will come here in the Siege Storm base card game, and everything that's out for this game so far is right here in this little box. So it's a nice small form factor. You want to get in on that giveaway. So what we're going to do is we're just going to look at the solo single player, because the rules will be the same if you bring in another player outside of end game. Obviously, it's kind of if one person is out of the game, which means all of your cards have been gone through, the other player can continue to try to defeat the Invader and win for both players. So that's really the main difference between that. And then you will get points at the end of the game, which are tracked on this little siege meter here, which is a really cool component that was included with the prototype edition, and would be in the production run of this as well, I assume. But it's a really cool little tracker meter that you can go and kind of get your score for the overall game, which the scoring is very simple. You get 20 points for each player that's still in the game at the end once the boss or the invader has been defeated. And then you get 1 point for every card that's still in your resources stack here. And you'll just add up all those points, and then you'll get a set number of points, which is pretty cool how it tracks it. And there is some funny things on there depending on what your score is. You know, you see try hard, there's a laugh out loud, a loser, a badass. So that's
a real badass, yeah.
So that's pretty fun how they added that in so you can track that. And then you will see there are some new components that are included here. We've got these spirit tokens that are right up front here, and these are going to be used on various cards in the game, primarily totem cards. There's different symbols that are on these cards. Bear, why don't you go ahead and load up the overhead view so you guys can start taking a look at some of these cards and the different symbols that are on the cards. But you'll notice some of these do have various different symbols, and one of them is the little spirit, which matches this token. So whenever those cards are played, you would then take a spirit token and you would throw it on a card that has a totem symbol. And those are different types of cards. Maybe we'll see some here come out on the deck as we look at startup and how the mechanic of the invader works. There's going to be these tokens that you'll place right on those totem cards, and those totems will become more and more powerful over the round of a turn. And that's what these are going to be used for. These here are another type of token. It's got a little goblin head on it with some earrings kind of in the ears. It's pretty cool looking. And these actually are utilized when you get cards that have that same symbol on them. You'll be able to make a decision. Either I'll deploy that on behalf of the invader into the track against the player, or I can play it as an action, much like this game works. You can either play cards as actions or as creatures in the track. You might want to play one of these cards as an action for the invader. It would give the invader a +1 on all of the units that it would have deployed within its track. So that is the gang action that can be taken per this token. So those are the two new tokens that are going to be included. You will have a customized special deck for the invader. You'll see that there are some cards that are set out to the side here, and that is just because when you play the game, depending on which boss you choose, and here's the boss card right here, there are 3 bosses. Well, it's essentially the same artwork on the boss. And again, this is all prototype, so you will see some cards that don't have finished artwork on them just yet. That artwork will be finished out over the course of the campaign, and obviously when you get production, it's going to be fantastic. All of the artwork that I've seen out of Awaken Realms has been top-notch stuff, so I'm looking forward to that. But for the prototype here, it does have the same artwork. It's one type of boss, but each one of those bosses are a little different. There's level 1, level 2, and level 3. On the back of this card, you will see that there are various different types of symbols, and those symbols actually tell you how you will set up the game. So on this card here, you'll see one or multiple players. That's why it has the, you have the one or the multiple players. And then it's the same symbols, and it tells you how many types of different cards. And each one of these cards have a different type to them. It'll tell you how many you randomly draw from that type of card, and then you'll shuffle those all together, and that will make your invader deck that you'll sit right here. And that's kind of the invader's health, or the enemy's health. And then there's 2 other things here at the bottom that will show the amount of cards that are drawn when it's the invader's turn, and then it will show the menace level that the invader starts with. And this menace level is a track right here, and there is one other little token here that tracks that. The menace level goes between 1 and 5+, and that acts as the invader's AI when it comes to their resources. So when you play the base Siege Storm game, one of the actions you can take when it goes off the top of the track, whether it's hold, storm, or you want a resource, you can put a resource down for yourself as a player, and that will just allow you to be able to activate more cards because you've got those resources to tap. It's a similar mechanic here with the siege mode for the invader. That's how the AI works. Wherever that menace level is, that's technically the resource level that the invader has, and it also dictates the type of cards the invader can play and use, utilizing the cost. So at the top of every one of the cards, and we'll get our boss laid back down here. So after you set that up, you then would put your boss right down, and then there's some things on the front here we're going to take a look at. So back to the menace level, every one of these cards, much like the base game, they do have a cost. Now in the base game, there's like a little ruby that shows the cost of what it takes to be able to play that card. How many other cards in your hand you got to lay down to be able to afford that card. For the Invader, it's the same thing. You'll see that there's a cost, a number that's up in that top corner there. That is controlled by the Menace level. So if the Menace level is at 2, you can only play cards that are of cost 2 or lower. So if I have a 3 out there, I'm not going to be able to play that card. That card at the end of that round, or technically at the beginning of the next round for the Invader, is going to get discarded and put in something called the dummy discard. It's basically a card that wasn't able to be used, and these dummy cards will be shuffled back into the deck when this deck runs out. So that's how that works. It's just a way to kind of get the card out of cycle as your Menace level moves up and down over the course of the game, because it will. The Menace level doesn't just move up, it also will move back down. So for this particular boss, let's take a look at this card here. It does say that there is something that controls the Menace level for this boss. It says level of Menace increase by 1 every time this boss has a unit that storms. Now every time the Invader's cards come off that track, much like in the normal game, you, and as a player, would have a choice to either storm or get a resource or hold. For the Invader, as part of their AI, they are always going to storm. And every time a card pops off, that's going to increase the Menace level, making that Invader a little bit stronger and being able to play stronger cards. You're also always going to be taking damage when that card comes off. Well, that's if you can't defend it, because it's always going to storm. So you do want to be careful and watch that as, where's your defender? What are you putting down as a defender based on when a card is going to pop off of a track? So there is some strategy there you're going to be able to want to watch as a player, because that enemy is always going to storm and try to attack that player. And health works the same way. You do have your 34 card deck. You are going to start with 2 cards in hand versus 4 for this game, or this version of the game. You're going to start with 2, so you'll have 32 cards in the deck. You will be drawing 2 cards on every one of your turn, just like you would be normally when you're playing this game. But that is going to be your health, and when that's gone, you would effectively be eliminated as a player. So how does the Invader die? The Invader dies a little bit differently based on, what these boss cards do say, but essentially it's once all the Invader's cards, or their life deck, has been deplenished. And as well as there's no cards in the dummy pile that can be shuffled back in to replenish that deck. So you really have to take out all of the Invader's minions or all of their cards to be able to win. And it does dictate that right here on this card. It says victory condition for this particular boss is when they take 25 damage. For a single player game, and for a multiplayer game, it's when they take 60 damage. So for this here, and there are 25 cards in this deck for the enemy for this prototype edition. So once all these cards are taken out and in the discard pile, you then would effectively win, and you want to obviously have that happen before you as a player lose all of your cards. So that's how the win and the loss conditions are going to work. Okay, so we've gone over the bosses, we've gone over our, I like to call these minion cards here, and we've gone over our Menace level. The last thing that we've got is a nice little reminder here. I love when these games include the nice little reference cards. This game does as well. There's a couple cards that show you exactly what your actions you can take and what those are, and you'll want to have those set next to you the first couple times you play the game until you get familiar with it. But this one also offers that for the siege mode, where you can see right here, you will attack. That is the Invader. They will always kind of go first. And then the players will respond with their defense, which is the standard round of playing the game. It says here, you prepare, you draw, you move your track, you deploy a unit, you end turn, and you have an extra turn if you have a card that will allow you to do extra turns, which is very powerful. So that's what you'll do as a player. And as the Invader, you will discard. So the first thing is anything that's left in your track, because you will, as the Invader, play all the cards that are capable for that Invader to play. It's how the AI works. Now, you'll only deploy 1 unit to the track, but you'll play as many cards as you can that are out in front of you. The game will start with 2, and that will be the number of cards. Again, that dictates that right there on the boss card, how many cards you'll start with. For this boss, it's 2. So you'll discard anything left. You're not going to do that for the first round because obviously you're just starting the game. But at the second round and go forward, you would discard anything left. You'd put those in your dummy track. You're then going to move your tracks. You're going to move your units for the invader along the track. That may cause a unit to pop off, and then it would attack you at that point. You're going to draw. So for this boss, it is 2. So we'll go ahead and draw 2 cards. And we got one of the cards that has the goblin symbol on it. So remember, that's going to utilize these tokens, allowing us, if we want to play it per an action, to give us those extra attack. Or this is a unit that can deploy into the track, so we can play those both ways. And then we got one of the new totem cards, which are really cool. And they got great artwork on them. I really love these totem cards. And these are the ones where you're going to be placing the spirit icons on. If you have a card that does that, and we do in our example here, we've got the Shaman Berserker, which is an awesome card. I absolutely love the artwork on this card here. And this one does have the spirit icon, you'll see that, and it also has the deploy icon. So any card that's got those double-cross swords, that's a card that can deploy into your track. Not every card will actually deploy into your track. This Seal of Madness here will not deploy into the track. You get to activate its ability. And this goblin here, because it has the little goblin symbol, can either be played as an action or deploy into the track. And you'll make that call as a player, but there is a rule set of priority of how you will activate these cards. So let's get right into that. So let's say the turn had started, and we'll kind of play out what this invader would be able to do on this turn. So if this was the draw, and again, our Menace level will be starting on 1, so we'll put that right back over on 1. First thing we're going to do is discard. First round of the game, we're not going to discard anything. We just started. This boss has just queued up its minions, and they're ready to rock. We're now going to move our track. Well, there's nothing in our track yet, so we wouldn't do anything there. We're then going to draw. Well, we just did. We pulled these 2 cards, so now we got 4 cards sitting in front of us, and now is where the magic of the AI is going to come in. How are we going to activate through these cards? So then we're going to go here to our actions, which is step 4, and it says actions with priority. So for this prototype, there aren't any cards that are marked with the priority symbol, but once that is put into production, that's the first thing you would do, is any of these cards that have the little priority marker on them, you're going to activate that card. You're then going to deploy a unit. You are then going to do any special actions that you would want to do. You're going to do any normal actions that you could do, and you're going to end your turn, and then you're going to signify units that are dummy units. Units that are left over that really can't do anything. You can tap those, you can leave them the way that they are. It's completely up to you. They'll just be discarded on the next turn. Now, you may think, well, can I just go through here and do anything that I want in any order? And the answer to that is no. You do have to follow the priority that we just went through. You also can only play cards that are at the enemy's level of resource, which is the Menace level. And right now, it's at 1. So, since it's at 1, we can only play cards that are 1 or less, which means we can really, for this turn, only play the Goblin Killer, which is cost of 1, and the Restoration Totem, which is cost of 1. But that Restoration Totem is only going to be able to give us that heal, its ability, if in fact we were able to put a spirit token on it, which we won't be able to because the Shaman Berserker won't be able to be played because it's a cost of 3. So I won't be able to activate that card. And that's another key mechanic we want to look at here. You are activating as many cards as you can for the Invader that fit within that Menace level. You know, the player will be able to do multiple things on their turn based on how many resources they want to cash out of their hand. So that may just be one thing. It may be multiple things. That's up to the player, and the cards is in that player's hand. So it's the same for the Invader with their AI. We want to be able to give the Invader as much opportunity to play cards than just saying, well, as a player, I only want the Invader to play this card or this card. I don't really want him to play these other cards, so I'm just going to choose this card, and that's going to be the card for this round. It doesn't work that way. You have to follow your priority, and you have to play as many cards as it's possible to play that fit within the Menace level. And I like that mechanic. I really like how they integrated that Menace level and allowing that to be the Invader's resources. And we did talk a little bit about being able to drop that menace level over the course of the game. And how that will work is anytime you have to force the invader to discard or lose a card, or there's a cost they can't pay, that's when you're going to be able to reduce their menace level by 1. And it's kind of like taking out their reserves, or taking out their their extra backup reserves that they have in play. So that's how that works. So that menace level will go back and forth over the course of the game. And obviously, as players, you're going to try to utilize strategies that drive that menace level down. Because you will find, once this track fills up for the invader, as cards pop off that track every turn, that menace level is going to continue to go up, getting higher and higher. And once it gets to 5+, that basically means that the invader can play their entire hand. Every card will fit cost-wise into that, and they literally can just hit you with one big punch. You don't want that. So you want to make sure you're utilizing strategies to drive that menace level back down. You want to be finding ways to force the invader to discard and get rid of cards. Okay? So now, let's get back to how this would play out. So we can only play the cards that are 1. So my favorite Shaman Berserker here is kind of out for the count, and my Seal of Madness is out for the count. But I can play my Goblin Killer and my Restoration token, but I don't think that token's going to do anything for me because I can't activate my Shaman. So the only thing that it looks like I'm going to be able to do for this round is go ahead and play the Goblin Killer. Now this card here with the little hand on it, the kind of the fist with the little hit, that's a symbol that basically says you'll play this card kind of after you've done other types of deploying and special actions. That's kind of the last type of card that you'll play. And it does have an action here that you'd be able to make use of if you could play that card. But again, doesn't fit inside of the menace level, so I'm not going to be able to activate that. So I can activate the Goblin Killer. There's no reason to play it as an action because there's no other units in the deploy track that I'd be able to put this +1 on. Now, if I did have 1 or 2 cards that were in this deploy track, I probably would, as the AI, go ahead and say, you know what? The best thing for the AI would be to go ahead and give them the extra hit, and you could go ahead and play that as an action and put those tokens on with their cards. And that's something that you do need to do. Some of these rules within this game, you do need to kind of play it fair. As the player, you do want to position the invader the best way they can be positioned. I feel like the order of the AI and the actions that you go through make this game play out pretty smoothly, and it is very balanced. You do feel like you're constantly battling this invader. It isn't easy where you just whip it. It's not easy at all. Like, you do feel like it is a challenge as you go through the game. But there are some situations like this where you wouldn't just say, oh, I'm just going to play it as an action. It doesn't do anything. So, oh, okay, nothing goes in the track. That really wouldn't be fair on the side of the invader. So you do want to make the right call there. So you'd pull that down and you'd put that in the ranks there, moving it into the front line, right into the front line for the invader. And now they do have a goblin there in the front line, and they're going to be kind of moving through. I do want to call out one more thing. These cards here are not defenders in any way. They don't defend the cards that are in the front line or no man's land as this card is moving through. You can't use these cards here to defend against cards that are down here. All right, that's all we're going to be able to do. So at this point, the invader, all of these cards would now be considered dumb cards, and then I could respond as a player. So I'm going to look here, and I'm going to prepare, which means I'm going to untap all of my resources. Well, I don't have any right now, so there's nothing I'll do there. I'm going to draw. So I'm going to go ahead and draw 2 cards. I have 4 cards in my hand now. The Healing Golem, love the artwork on that one. Again, the artwork on this TCG is absolutely fantastic. All right, so I've got my cards, okay, and then let's see. We got a 0 card to deal 2 damage if there are at least 2 cards on your track. There isn't, so I can't use that protector. That's a 0 cost. There's a passive. For 2, I can negate an action or an ability targeting a card on your track. Now, I don't want to do that. I think what I'm going to go ahead and do is just Opponent discards 2. So this Alchemist is good. I'm going to go ahead and cash this card. I'm going to go ahead and discard this card and pay 1 to get the Alchemist out into my track. The Alchemist does have Fight of 2 and Defense of 2. And the opponent discards 2, and I draw 2. When it comes off the top, I can execute that action. So I'm going to go ahead and do that because I can get some damage, and I can cause discard, which will drive the Menace level down, which is going to be good for me as a player. So that's what I'll do for my turn. I'm not, I didn't need to move my track because obviously there was nothing in the track. I deployed. I'm now ending my turn. And I can't take any extra turns because nothing is allowing me that. And then I would go back to the Invader. So we'll just run through one more for the Invader so it's clear, and then we'll go ahead and stop. So at this point, we do discard. Oh, look at what we got. Got 3 dummies left over. So we grab all of our dummies. Grab all of our dummies, Bear. And then we're going to put those right over in the dummy discard. We're then going to move our track. So now our Goblin is in no man's land. And we're then going to draw, which is going to be 2. Okay, I also want to make another point with this Menace level because it does affect the player as well. Wherever the Menace level is on this track, that is how many cards that the player can have in their resources. So over the course of the game, if you want to, add resources, and that's just an action you can do once your card pops off the track, you can add it as a resource and use it to be able to tap on costs of cards if you need a little extra boost. You can only have as many support units as the Menace level is as well. So the Menace level also controls that. So we talked a little bit about a strategy around, driving that Menace level down. There's a little bit of balance there because as you drive it down, obviously it says that, hey, Invader and Boss, you can only play cards that are of that value or lower. But it also says, player, you can only have that many support units as well. So, if you feel like you need at least 2 or you like to have 2 to 3 support units, then you may want to have that Menace level hover around that 2 or 3, even though it's giving the Invader an advantage of being able to play better cards. So there's a balance and a trade-off there as well. So just keep that in mind as you manage that Menace level track. And I really think that mechanic of this game truly does need to be something that you are managing as a player or players. It isn't something that it's just all about the card flips and you just sort of let this track go wild. You really are working to manage that Menace level track and putting it in the best spot that's the most optimal and robust strategy for you as a player. So let's get back here to our turn. We already discarded. We moved already. We drawed our cards. Now we're going to do our actions. It says actions with priority. Again, those aren't marked for the prototype. We're going to deploy a unit. Well, we go here and we do have the double cross swords, which means we can deploy the Shaman Berserker, but our Menace level isn't there yet. It's a card that we can't do. It's a really powerful card, so that one's off the table. We do have a cost of 0, which is capable of being plain, and that's the Seal of Haste. And that's going to happen after we're done with everything else because it has the little fist on it, and it also has the little spirit. But there is no totem cards in play, so that's not going to do anything for us right now because there's no totems that are also in play. So we're going to come here and we're going to go through. We can't deploy a unit. We're going to do special actions, and we just kind of went, we don't have any special actions. And then we're going to do normal actions. We do have a normal action here, so we are going to activate this card. And it says move all allies on track 1 space forward. So now our Goblin Killer is now at the top of this track. So upon the next turn, it's going to pop off the track, and then we're going to be able to attack in on our player. So what does that mean from a player's perspective? Should I just go ahead and leave this defender here? Should I go, well, I'm not going to be able to because I'm going to have to move the track before I deploy and play. So now this guy is in the no man's land, and it is 2 versus 2. Okay, so he does have 2 defense and he has 2 attacks, so he's going to be able to pose an attack there. So you're going to have to think about that as a player. What do you want to put down? Do you want to defend that Alchemist? Because you might want to get that Alchemist off the top of the track, which allows you to discard 2 and draw 2, again, knocking that Menace level down. But you may not want to knock the Menace level down. It's all up to you as a player. So that's how that turn is going to play out. Those are all the actions we're going to be able to do. This card was played, so we will technically discard this card because it was played. It's not a dummy. it was actually utilized. And then what we're going to do is we're going to be left with this shaman here, and then it's now going to be technically a dummy unit, and upon the next turn, it would get discarded off. So that's how the rounds are going to play out, essentially at a high level. We've talked about a lot of the mechanics, the new mechanics that are in this game, and I just want to spend a moment just talking a little bit about what I think about this game, because we've really kind of looked at it from more of an objective perspective so far. I actually really like this, and the one thing that I love that Awaken Realms is doing with this particular platform is their strategy to entry. Now I say that because the TCG market is already highly saturated. There are a lot of TCG games that are out there. A lot of these collectible card games, trading card games, combat card games, whatever you want to call them, there's a lot of these out there on the market. And yet this is another one. But I think they've done a nice job with the mechanics and the design of this game, that it feels different. It feels different than your standard, player versus player combat game. It feels different than just sitting down and playing another variation of Magic. And I'll just go ahead and say it, because a lot of these games feel like variations of the game Magic, just implemented in a little bit of a different way. This one feels very different. It doesn't feel like you're playing that type of game at all. Even when it's a player versus player, Siege Storm regular game, it doesn't feel that you're playing just a variation of something that already exists out there. It feels like a new, fresh kind of combat card game. And I think they deserve some credit for that, because there's a lot of strategy to this game. There's a lot of different strategies that you can deploy as a player that I think you don't really understand until you've played this game multiple times. You really start to see just the level of thought that goes into all the different choices that you have. And it's still, the game at heart is still a very streamlined, very simplistic game. It's not difficult to play at all, but I believe it is difficult to master. To be able to master this game and be very, very good at this game, you're going to have to play this game over time to get better and better and better at it. And you will know when you sit down and play this game with someone who really understands how to play this game, Siege Storm, when you just get whipped. And this is just one more way to continue to expand upon the options that you have with Siege Storm. So Siege Storm at heart has quite a few different ways to quote-unquote play. I mean, there is one rule set, but there's so many different strategies of how you want to play as a player. It gives you a lot of different options and gives you a huge amount of replayability. Replayability. There we go. We got it on that one. Thank you, Bear. Also different factions. So far, there's 2 that are out, but there's going to be more that will obviously be released over time, so you'll have more factions, add to that replayability as well. And now you have the Siege mode, which keeps the game in its form as far as the players are concerned, but gives you another way to yet play this game. A whole nother way to play the game. And now allows you to be more of a solo and or co-op experience, and I like that. It's a small form factor if you're traveling and you love this game. You can't find someone to play because maybe you're traveling, or maybe someone's just not interested for one reason or other. They aren't really a gamer. You can go back to the hotel room. You can go back to wherever you're staying, and you can still get your Siege Storm fix on by being able to bust Siege mode out and play from a solo perspective. And again, it does feel very much like you are playing another player. I think they've done a nice job with the AI. I found after a few games that you do feel like you're playing another player. It's not easy by any means. You do really have to keep in mind of the cards that are coming out. You have to keep that Menace level track in mind, manage that over the course of the game. As well as a number of other things when you look at the spirit tokens and how they add up, as well as the little goblin tokens. If you got 2 or 3 cards for the Invader in this track, and all of a sudden you get a goblin card come out, you know what? It's probably best for that player to get that special action and be able to one-up the attack of every one of those cards in the track. Now you're going to be taking boom, 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 a lot of damage unless you can get those cards out of that track. those spirit tokens can really add up on you, because every spirit token that's added on a totem card, and let's get us another totem card out here. Here's another one, restoration token. As those cards come out, if you get cards that have more of those spirit tokens, every one that's added to a card is going to give that totem more and more power. Okay, that is Siege mode. That is the new version of Siege Storm that's going to be coming very soon here in July. Again, that campaign is going to be starting very soon. We'll have links in the description below on the dates, as well as the date where we will be drawing, hitting the button of fate, and drawing the one random team member that's commented below. And as also subscribe to the channel. That's how you get to be a team member. Please like that Facebook and check us out on Facebook, as well as follow me on Twitter if you can. Those things are not required for the giveaway at all, but it just helps the channel and it helps you stay in touch with all the stuff that we're doing. YouTube doesn't always get those notifications out there. So if you do follow on Twitter, make announcements of the videos, as well as announce the winners of these giveaways on Twitter. So it's always fun to do there. We do some special pictures and different, adventures that we're on as well. When we go to the cons and whatnot, we'll have that stuff on Twitter too. So check that out. All right, Siege Storm, Siege Mode. Be looking for it coming really soon. So hit that like, click the subscribe below to join the team. Roll them crits. This has been the McGuire Review, and we'll see you next time. Let's go, Bear.